Hello, gentle dreamer, and welcome back to the Snoozy Scientist, where we drift through life's deepest questions, one sleepy yawn at a time. I'm so glad you're here tonight. Maybe you're already curled up under the covers, eyes half closed, or maybe you're listening with the soft hum of night around you, ready to let your mind wander someplace calm and curious. Tonight, we're going to drift into one of life's oldest and deepest mysteries, a question as old as breath itself. What happens when we die? Not through the hush of myth or poetry, but through the quiet, curious eyes of science. Where do we go when our bodies grow still? What does that final sigh feel like as it slips out like a receding tide? Does the light of our thoughts simply fade or linger in ways we can't yet see? These questions drift through all of us, and tonight we'll explore them together, slowly, gently, like moonlight gliding across a calm sea. But before we sail too far, I'd love to know, where in the world are you listening from tonight? Drop a comment and tell me what time it is wherever you're winding down. And if these soft bedtime rambles help you find rest, gently tap the like button and consider subscribing. It helps this snoozy little corner of the internet keep growing. It means so much to have you here. So relax, take a deep breath in, let it out like a wave rolling back to sea. And now, let's wade into the mystery to see what science can tell us about that last horizon and what might wait just beyond it. When we think about the moment of death, our minds often drift to something sudden and sharp. But the truth is, for most people, the body's final breath comes as softly as a wave sliding back to sea. The human body, so complex and tireless through our days, begins to slow in a way that feels almost like nature herself is guiding us back to stillness. Science has spent years studying this tender threshold, hoping to understand what truly happens as life releases its grip. It begins deep inside, where the heart has been beating faithfully for so many years. Each heartbeat, a tiny push of life, carries oxygen and warmth to every cell. But when the end draws near, the body's needs begin to slip away. The heart no longer pumps with the same steady force. Each beat grows weaker, like the hush of a drum that knows its final rhythm is near. The blood flows more slowly now, and without its constant push, other systems begin to rest as well. The breath too changes. If you have ever sat beside someone who is close to the edge of life, you may have heard it. There is a soft, irregular breathing pattern that comes in the final hours or minutes. Doctors and nurses sometimes call it the death rattle. It sounds almost harsh, but there is nothing frightening in its science. As the muscles that help us swallow and cough begin to relax, tiny amounts of fluid can gather in the back of the throat. Each breath passes over this pool, creating a gentle, rattling sound, like a tide brushing against pebbles. To the listener, it can feel haunting, but to the one who breathes it, there is often no pain at all. The brain, already drifting away, has stopped paying attention to these details. When the final breath does arrive, it does so like a sigh that has waited a lifetime to be released. It might come after a long pause, where those gathered around hold their own breath in quiet anticipation, or it might come gently in the middle of sleep when the mind has already begun to wander elsewhere. Some people describe this moment as a sense of release, the last wave rolling away from the shore, carrying the body's warmth out into the world one final time. Scientists have observed this pattern across cultures, across settings, in busy hospitals and quiet bedrooms. It does not matter whether the heart stops first or the breath fades first. They are partners in this slow goodbye. The brain, so hungry for oxygen during life, cannot continue without it. Within moments of that final breath, the electrical activity that once sparked thoughts, dreams, and memories begins to dim. Some researchers say the brain may flicker for a few seconds, or even minutes after the heart has stopped. It is as if the lights go out in the rooms of a house one by one until there is nothing left but a soft silence, and yet in that silence there is no chaos. The body knows how to stop just as well as it knows how to start. When you were born, your lungs opened like sails catching a new wind for the first time. In death, they release that wind, folding gently as if resting from their lifelong work. Even the smallest cells begin their final tasks. Without fresh oxygen, they begin to shut down their tiny engines, no longer needing to burn fuel or repair themselves. The enzymes that once built and rebuilt you now start to break you back down, returning you slowly to the elements that made you. For those who keep vigil beside a loved one, this process can feel both fragile and profound. There is often a quiet reverence in the room when the final breath comes and goes. Some people say they feel a shift in the air, a subtle change that they cannot quite describe, but that they remember forever. A stillness settles in, like the calm that follows a passing storm. Though science does not claim to measure the soul or where it might drift, it does remind us that the body itself is part of the endless cycle of life. The final breath is not just an end, but a gentle return. The carbon that built your bones and hair, the oxygen that kept your cells alive, will all find their way back into the world around you. The last breath does not vanish. It drifts into the room, into the trees outside, into the oceans and clouds that wrap our planet. The body's work is done, but its pieces continue, scattered like stardust. So tonight, as you lie warm and safe beneath your blanket, know that the final breath, when it comes, is rarely cruel or sudden. It is the closing note in a song your body has sung since your very first cry. It is the tide slipping back to sea, carrying only what was always meant to return. And as you rest here now, with your own soft breaths rising and falling, you can trust that this gentle pattern connects us all. Like waves on the shore, our beginning and our end are cradled in the same great ocean. And for tonight, you are simply here, breathing in the hush between each heartbeat, drifting with the waves of sleep that carry you deeper into dreams. If you close your eyes for a moment and listen to the gentle hum of your own thoughts, you might imagine them as tiny sparks flickering in the darkness behind your eyelids. This is not so different from how your brain truly works. Right now, billions of tiny electrical signals dance through your neurons like fireflies, lighting up a summer meadow. Each thought, each memory, each dream is carried along these glowing pathways. Even when you sleep, the mind hums softly, drifting between wakefulness and dreams like a boat bobbing on a moonlit tide. But what happens when life nears its final breath? Neuroscience has spent decades trying to catch a glimpse of the mind's last moments, to understand what happens when the body grows still, but the brain lingers for a few precious seconds longer. It turns out that the brain does not simply shut off like a lamp. It dims slowly, its patterns drifting and sparking in surprising ways as it slips into silence. When the heart stops beating and fresh oxygen no longer flows through the blood, the brain is one of the first parts of us to feel the change. Oxygen is its fuel, and without it, the delicate networks that carry our thoughts begin to fail. Yet instead of going dark all at once, the mind often flares like a final bonfire on the shore. In the moments after clinical death, scientists have measured sudden bursts of electrical activity. These waves are sometimes stronger than what we see when we are fully awake. They ripple through the cortex, the outer layer of the brain that holds our memories, our sense of self, our conscious awareness. No one knows for certain what these final storms mean. Some neuroscientists think this could be the brain's way of trying to reboot itself, like a ship that refuses to sink without flashing its lights one last time. Others believe this surge of energy might explain why so many people who have been close to death tell stories of seeing their lives flash before their eyes or drifting through tunnels of light. These visions are so common they appear in cultures all around the world. A calm tunnel, a bright light, sometimes the comforting presence of loved ones long gone, waiting just beyond the threshold. From a scientific view, these images might be the mind's final dream, a cascade of memories and feelings as the brain's oxygen slips away. When the brain senses a lack of oxygen, it can trigger a flood of neurotransmitters, the tiny messengers that carry information between neurons. This sudden rush can light up old memories buried deep within us. Some researchers have found that certain parts of the brain, like the visual cortex and the temporal lobes, can become unusually active. These regions are linked to how we see images, remember faces, and understand emotions. Imagine for a moment your brain reaching back through its shelves of moments, pulling out bright, comforting memories as a final gift to itself. Another part of this final flicker is the dreamlike nature of near-death experiences. When people are revived after their hearts have stopped, many tell stories that feel vivid and deeply real, floating above their own bodies, hearing the voices of family members, seeing places they have never seen before. Some scientists believe that these sensations come from a blend of physical and chemical changes. The lack of oxygen, the rush of stress hormones, and the electrical surges create a mind untethered from its usual sense of time and place. This does not mean these experiences are not meaningful. On the contrary, they remind us how beautifully mysterious the human mind is, even in its final moments. They show us that dying is not always a sharp break, but a drifting process, a dreamlike crossing from wakefulness into something we do not yet fully understand. In these last flickers, the brain's sense of self may grow thin like morning mist, boundaries between memory, imagination, and the present blur. Some researchers compare it to dreaming while awake, a state where the mind weaves familiar images into something comforting. Even people who do not believe in any afterlife often describe these moments as peaceful. They feel lifted out of pain, held by something softer than fear. In hospitals and hospices, doctors and nurses have seen this pattern again and again. The person's breath slows, their eyes flutter closed. Somewhere inside, the neurons that once carried worries and plans now light up one final time. It is not chaos, it is not violence, it is a last gentle spark before the embers cool. When you think about your own mind, you might picture your thoughts like ocean waves rolling onto shore. Each idea, each memory, each tiny spark arrives, crests, and fades back into the vast deep. The mind's last flicker is like watching the final waves wash over the sand, carrying with them all the moments that once made you, you. Science tells us that even when the body is still, the mind's final moments can be luminous, a quiet brilliance that reminds us we are more than just cells and bones. We are stories, we are sparks, and as the brain's light finally fades, those sparks do not vanish. They drift outward, carried like whispers on the ocean breeze. So as you rest here now, breathing slowly beneath your blanket, know that your mind too holds this gentle mystery. It has its storms and its calms, its memories and its dreams. And when the day comes for the final flicker, it will do what it has always done. It will drift like a wave back to sea, a final glow in the darkness, a reminder that the mind's quiet beauty does not fear the night. Sleep now. Let your own thoughts soften like a candle flame in the wind. You are here, you are safe, and the waves keep rolling, carrying you deeper into dreams. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine standing at the mouth of a long tunnel. The air is still. Ahead of you, a soft, warm light glows at the far end, brighter than the darkness around you, but not harsh. It feels inviting somehow, like the gentle glow of sunrise on a winter morning. For thousands of years, people across the world have described this very scene. It drifts through cultures and languages, a vision that appears when a life comes close to ending, but does not fully slip away. Near death experiences are among the most mysterious and comforting glimpses into what might happen when we die. Some people who have come close to death, who have been pulled back from the very edge, describe them in strikingly similar ways. They often speak of floating above their own bodies, seeing doctors and nurses working frantically below. They remember drifting down a tunnel, feeling weightless and free from pain. Some speak of seeing long gone family members or hearing voices calling to them from the light. Others feel as if they are surrounded by a sense of peace, so deep it feels endless. Science has been curious about these stories for many decades. What could cause such vivid visions at the moment when the body is failing and the brain is starved of oxygen? Some neuroscientists believe the tunnel and the light might be our brain's final masterpiece, a product of the mind's last attempt to make sense of what is happening when the body begins to shut down. When the brain is deprived of oxygen, the cells that make up our visual system can behave in unusual ways. The retina at the back of your eyes is lined with light-sensitive cells that send images to the brain through a web of nerves. In normal life, these cells rely on a steady supply of oxygen-rich blood, but when the heart stops or slows dramatically, that supply dwindles. As the brain senses this lack, parts of the visual cortex, which interprets what we see, may become hyperactive. Some researchers think this is why people often see a tunnel of darkness with a bright light in the center. The edges of the retina lose function first, while the cells in the very center may stay active a little longer. The result is a vision that seems like moving through a tunnel with a pinpoint of light at the end. It is the brain's way of interpreting what is happening as its systems begin to fade. But the tunnel is not the only piece of this mystery. Many people report seeing scenes from their own lives, like a movie reel playing moments they had long forgotten. They feel memories cascade one after the other. A first kiss, a mother's touch, a sunset watched through young eyes. Science has traced this to the temporal lobes of the brain. These regions store vivid memories and can become unusually active during moments of intense stress or lack of oxygen. They release a flood of images and feelings, sometimes all at once, as if the brain is giving itself a comforting send-off. Then there is the feeling of leaving the body altogether. Some people describe rising above the hospital bed or accident scene, looking down at themselves from somewhere near the ceiling. They might hear voices or see things that when they wake, they can describe in surprising detail. Science calls this an out-of-body experience and connects it to the brain's parietal lobe. This area helps us understand where our bodies are in space. When it is disrupted, our sense of self can drift away from the physical body. Yet, even with these scientific explanations, near-death experiences remain deeply personal. They are shaped by our memories, our beliefs, and the stories we hold close. Someone raised with tales of a bright heaven may see that comforting glow. Someone else might feel they are walking through a peaceful forest, or standing at the edge of a vast ocean under a silver moon. These visions do not follow a single script. They are part science, part the mind's unique way of making sense of the unknown. Researchers who study near-death experiences are careful not to dismiss the feelings people bring back from them. Many who have been to the edge and returned say they are no longer afraid of dying. They describe a deep calm, a sense that there is more to the world than what we see in our busy waking hours. For some, the memory of that tunnel and the light waiting at the end becomes a source of comfort during illness or old age. In a way, Near-death experiences remind us that the mind is not just a collection of cells firing in the dark. It is a storyteller, a dreamer, an artist that paints with light even when the world grows dim. Whether these visions are glimpses of something beyond or just the brain's final gift to itself, they are a part of the beautiful puzzle of being alive. So as you lie here now, warm and safe under your blanket, breathe softly and imagine that tunnel. Picture the gentle light at its end. Let it remind you that even when the mind stands at the edge of life, it knows how to wrap us in comfort. Like moonlight on the waves, these stories drift through us, each one a reminder that the end may not feel like a closing door, but like walking through a quiet passage towards something we do not yet fully know. Drift now. Let your thoughts be soft and your breathing slow. The tunnel and the light can wait far beyond the horizon. For tonight, you are here, held in the calm ocean of your own quiet mind. There is something tender and quietly mysterious about the final moments before death. Families and nurses often whisper about it in hushed voices, stories of loved ones reaching out a hand to someone only they can see, eyes fluttering open after hours of sleep to fix on a far corner of the room, lips moving to greet a mother, a father, a sister long gone. These moments have drifted through generations like a gentle tide. They remind us that the mind and the heart hold on to connection even as the body lets go. In hospitals and hospices around the world, caregivers witness these visions again and again. A patient who has not spoken for days might suddenly smile and call out to a parent who passed away long ago. Another might describe a vivid dream in which they are surrounded by friends who wait patiently at the foot of their bed. Sometimes people see peaceful landscapes, gardens in bloom, sunlight streaming through windows, or the gentle sway of a familiar tree. These final visions are so common that many doctors and nurses have come to see them as part of dying's quiet pattern, a gentle bridge between here and wherever the mind wanders next. Science, always curious, has looked into these stories with care. Neuroscience suggests that these visions could be rooted deep in the brain's structure and chemistry. When the body begins to shut down, the brain does not simply flick off like a light switch. Instead, it drifts through stages, sometimes becoming more active in certain areas than others. As oxygen levels drop and blood flow slows, parts of the brain can misfire in small, sudden bursts. These flickers of activity can unlock memories, feelings, and images buried for decades. The temporal lobes play a large role in this. This region helps us process memories, faces, and emotions. It is why a scent can carry you back to childhood, or why hearing an old song can fill your chest with warmth. In the final hours, the temporal lobes may light up with electrical surges, pulling forth comforting faces from a mind that knows its time is short. For many people, these faces belong to parents, partners, or friends who once brought them safety and love. Seeing them, even just for a moment, can be a balm to the fear that sometimes creeps in when we think about dying. There is another possible layer to these visions. Some scientists believe that the chemicals released by the brain as it shuts down play a role in vivid dreams and hallucinations. Stress hormones and neurotransmitters flood the mind in a final rush, soothing pain and easing anxiety. In this fragile state, the boundaries between waking and dreaming can blur. A person may drift between sleep and wakefulness, not fully in either world, but cradled softly in both. This is why some people describe these moments as dreamlike, a drifting sense of being half here and half someplace else. Families often take comfort in hearing what their loved one sees. A grandmother might murmur about a field of flowers where her sisters are waiting. A father might whisper to a child that he sees his own father standing in the corner, arms wide open. Some patients speak of a door, a gate, or a gentle path winding towards something they cannot quite describe. The images are deeply personal, shaped by memories, beliefs, and the longing to feel that we do not leave this world alone. Doctors remind us that while these visions have neurological roots, they do not need to be dismissed as illusions without meaning. Our brains have always been storytellers. They spin dreams every night from fragments of our days and old memories. In our final moments, they may simply reach for the faces and places that comforted us most. Even when the mind is fragile, it still knows how to soothe itself with a vision of a mother's embrace or a friend's familiar laugh. In some cultures, these final dreams are not explained away, but cherished. They are seen as the soul's way of preparing for a journey, a rehearsal for crossing a threshold that is at once universal and deeply private. Caregivers who have sat by many bedsides often say that people seem calmer after seeing these visions. Their breathing slows, their hands rest more lightly on the blankets. There is a sense that the room has grown warmer somehow, filled with invisible company. Science does not claim to know what these final visitors truly are. Perhaps they are only the mind's beautiful way of letting go. Or perhaps they are something more, something no scan or measurement can quite capture. What matters is how they make us feel, less alone, less afraid, more ready to drift into the great unknown. Tonight, as you lie here listening, breathe softly and think of those visions. Imagine the faces you might want to see if you could open your eyes one last time to someone waiting at the edge of your bed. Picture a warm light filling the room, wrapping you like a blanket, easing the edges of fear. Let it remind you that when the body falls quiet, the mind often finds its own gentle way to say goodbye. So rest now. Let your own dreams drift like soft boats on an endless sea. Somewhere in the deep quiet, the stories you carry will keep you company, just as they do in life's final tender moments. And for now, you are here, safe, warm, and gently drifting into sleep's comforting embrace. The science of dying cells. Imagine drifting far out at sea, where the water is so still you can see the pale shimmer of the moon reflected on the waves. In many ways, your body is like that ocean, vast, alive with hidden currents and tiny movements you rarely notice. Every heartbeat, every breath, every thought depends on the countless cells that make up who you are. These cells live and work together in a quiet dance, passing messages, carrying energy, building and repairing the body you carry through the world. But when life reaches its final moments, this great community of cells begins a gentle unwinding, returning each piece back to the cycle it came from. Scientists have studied this process for centuries, tracing how life fades not all at once, but in tiny steps. It begins with the final breath and the last heartbeat. Once oxygen stops flowing through your veins, the cells that depend on it begin to sense the change. They are used to a steady current of oxygen-rich blood, like tiny ships drifting on an endless river. Without this river, they slowly lose their strength. One of the first places this becomes visible is in the brain. Brain cells are among the most sensitive to a lack of oxygen. Within minutes, the electrical pulses that once carried your thoughts, memories, and dreams begin to flicker and fade. Some neurons may fire in one last bright storm, but without fuel, they cannot hold on. It is as if the lights in a vast city begin to go out, one neighborhood at a time, until the skyline is dark. After the brain grows quiet, the rest of the body follows its patient rhythm. Heart cells stop contracting, muscles relax completely, organs that once hummed with constant work fall still. Yet even in this stillness, the cells do not simply vanish. Instead, they begin a final task, the graceful return of their building blocks to the world around them. Inside each cell are tiny powerhouses called mitochondria. These tiny structures burn oxygen to create energy, but without fresh fuel, they shut down. Enzymes that once repaired and protected the cell walls now start to break them down. This is the beginning of autolysis, which means self-digestion. It sounds harsh, but it is not violent. It is simply the body's way of letting its pieces return to the earth. As cells break apart, they release nutrients that other living things depend on. Tiny bacteria, many of which have lived inside you all your life, now have a new role. They begin to help decompose what remains. These microbes are not strangers. They helped you digest your food, protected you from illness, and balanced your inner world. Now they help carry your elements outward, turning the tissues of your body back into simple compounds that the soil can drink in. This process continues quietly, often unnoticed by the living world. In the first hours, the skin may grow pale as blood settles with gravity. Rigor mortis, the stiffness that comes when muscles run out of energy, sets in for a while before fading again. Deeper inside, cells break down, releasing gases and fluids that nourish tiny insects and microbes. This is not waste, it is the beginning of renewal. Flowers, trees, and grasses will one day draw from these minerals, weaving them back into green leaves and bright petals. It can be comforting to know that this is not unique to humans. Every living thing returns to the cycle in this way. A fallen leaf decays into soil, feeding roots that send up new shoots in spring. An animal that dies in the forest nourishes the insects and fungi that shape the woods. Our bodies, too, find their place in this endless circle. Each cell that carried your memories, your laughter, your tears, becomes part of something larger. Nothing is lost. It is only transformed. Some scientists spend their whole careers studying this delicate process. Forensic pathologists read the stages of cell breakdown like chapters in a book. By studying how cells and tissues change, they can tell the story of when and how a life ended. But for the rest of us, this quiet unraveling holds a softer lesson. It reminds us that even in the silence after the final breath, life is not really gone. It shifts shape, drifting outward like a tide that carries our smallest pieces to new shores. So tonight, as you lie under your blanket, breathing slowly, think of your own cells working quietly in the dark. They are like tiny lanterns, each one glowing with purpose and life. One day, when your time comes, they too will rest and return to the earth. They will feed new roots, new blooms, new life that rises again and again. This is not something to fear. It is the patient work of nature, the same force that grows forests from fallen seeds and sends flowers bursting through the snow each spring. In this, you are never truly gone. You become part of every breeze that stirs the grass, every drop of rain that soaks the soil, every petal that opens to the sun. For now, you are here. Your cells hum softly, your breath drifts in and out like the tide, and you are safe in the cradle of your own warm body. Let your thoughts drift like tiny boats on a vast ocean. Let the science of dying cells remind you that life always finds a way to begin again. Sleep, and trust the gentle unwinding that connects you to everything that grows, blooms, and breathes under the wide starlit sky. If you place your hand over your chest right now, you can feel it, that steady, quiet beat beneath your ribs, the faithful rhythm that has been with you from your very first breath. Your heart is more than a pump. It is a drummer that keeps time for every cell and every organ that depends on its constant music. It works without pause, carrying you through laughter, sorrow, sleep, and waking. From the smallest moments of wonder to the longest nights, your heart keeps the story of your life flowing in gentle waves. But like every part of us, the heart too has its final note. When the moment comes for life to drift into its last stillness, the heart is one of the last organs to let go. Its quiet stop is not a sudden crash, but a peaceful surrender, like a boat drifting gently toward a calm shore. To understand this, imagine for a moment how the heart works during your life. It is made up of special muscle cells that generate tiny electrical signals. These signals tell the heart when to squeeze and when to rest. Each contraction sends blood carrying oxygen and nutrients through your arteries, weaving life into every corner of your body. The cells in your fingertips, the strands of hair on your head, and the thoughts swirling in your brain all rely on this flow. Even as you sleep, the heart listens for subtle shifts in your body's needs. It beats faster when you dream of running or when you stir from a deep slumber. It slows down when you drift into deeper rest, each beat like an oar dipping softly into still water. When dying approaches, the heart does not simply stop all at once, like the tide receding at dusk. It slows in response to signals from the rest of the body. The brain, sensing a lack of oxygen, tells the body to conserve energy. The lungs begin to take shallower breaths. Blood pressure drifts downward like a leaf floating on a quiet pond. The chemical messengers that once sparked the heart's rhythm grow fewer, like lanterns winking out one by one. Inside the heart itself, the electrical signals that keep it beating start to falter. These impulses usually travel through a carefully mapped network of pathways, sparking the muscle fibers to squeeze in perfect order. But when the balance of oxygen and energy shifts, these pathways lose their spark. The cells that once fired like tiny stars grow quiet. The rhythm grows slower, then irregular, then pauses altogether. For families and loved ones who sit close, this moment often feels sacred. A stethoscope pressed gently to the chest will hear those last beats like distant waves, softer and softer until they fade into silence. For the person crossing that threshold, there is usually no awareness of this final note. The brain has already begun its slow dimming. The body, so long kept warm by each pulse, grows peaceful and still. Circulation ceases in this gentle unwinding. Without the push of the heart's contractions, the blood settles. Gravity, ever patient, pulls it to the lowest parts of the body. This is why a person's skin may look pale in some places and darker in others as the hours pass. It is nature's way of closing the loop. The highways of veins and arteries fall silent, resting from the lifelong work they carried out every moment since birth. Though this ending might sound somber, there is a quiet beauty in it too. The same heart that once raced with your first childhood adventure, that pounded with love and calmed with a lullaby's hush, now finds its perfect stillness. It is not a failure, but a release. The body, sensing there is no more work to be done, allows the heart to rest like a tired bird folding its wings. Science tells us that every living thing follows this path in its own way. The hummingbird's tiny heart that beats hundreds of times each minute finds stillness at last. The whale's enormous heart, pushing blood through a body bigger than a bus, eventually slows and stops too. The language of the heart is universal. It starts with a spark and ends with a sigh. So tonight, as you lie here feeling the soft flutter of your own heartbeat, think of it as a friend, a keeper of your story, a gentle pulse that has carried you through every joy and every tear. One day, far from now, it too will find its quiet stop. And when it does, the love, the laughter, and the life it held will drift on in ways you may not even see. Breathe in now and feel that beat under your palm. It is not just a sign of life, it is a promise that you are here, that you are part of this endless ocean of living, drifting, and returning. When the heart's last note sounds, it does not vanish. It joins the hush of the world, like a final ripple on a starlit sea. So rest now. Let your heartbeat remind you that you are alive, carried by the gentle drum within your chest. Trust that one day, when the time is right, the heart will know when to stop, not with fear or violence, but with the same softness that has carried you all your life. Let your thoughts drift to that quiet shore and sleep, wrapped in the steady pulse of your own tender music. If you close your eyes right now and listen closely, you can hear your own breath moving in and out, a gentle tide that has been with you since the moment you arrived in this world. Every inhale and exhale is like a wave rolling up the shore, then sliding back into the wide, endless sea. Long before we think about how our hearts beat or our cells work, we learn to trust our breath, that quiet, patient rhythm that carries us from waking to sleep and back again. When life reaches its final moments, this pattern does not simply stop. It changes in ways that feel deeply connected to the natural world. To sit with someone who is close to dying is to hear this rhythm soften and grow irregular, like the tide shifting under a silver moon. In those last hours or days, each breath can tell a story all its own. Doctors and nurses who care for people at the end of life often speak of something called the death rattle. It sounds harsh, but in truth, it is nothing to fear. It is simply the name for the sound that sometimes fills the quiet room when a person's body begins to let go. As the muscles that help us swallow and clear our throat begin to relax, small amounts of fluid gather at the back of the mouth or in the airways. When the person breathes in or out, the air passes over this fluid, creating a soft, rattling sound like water trickling over pebbles at the edge of a tide pool. For family and loved ones nearby, hearing this sound can be unsettling at first. It feels like a sign of struggle, but in most cases, the person who is dying is unaware of it. Their mind is drifting far from the details of the body. They do not feel the gentle gurgle that others hear. The brain's awareness of discomfort has already begun to fade, like footprints disappearing under a rising wave. This final pattern of breathing often follows a familiar shape. In the days or hours before death, the breath may become slower, each inhale longer and softer than before. Sometimes there are long pauses when it seems like no breath will come at all. Loved ones hold their own breath, waiting. Then, like a wave that retreats only to return again, another gentle breath arrives, filling the chest one last time. This irregular pattern has a name too: Chine-Stokes breathing. It is common when the body's systems begin to close down. The brain's signals to the lungs become softer, more scattered, like a radio signal drifting in and out on a foggy night. This pattern of breathing mirrors the ocean in its calm unpredictability. It reminds us that the body is not a machine to be switched off in an instant. It is more like a shoreline where the waves know when to roll in and when to slip back. Even when the muscles are tired, even when the mind is quiet, the breath keeps moving in this dance until it is time to rest completely. Sometimes, families who sit beside the bed find themselves breathing in time with the person they love. A long breath in, a pause, a quiet exhale, a hush settles in the room, broken only by this gentle pattern. In that moment, it can feel like all of life has narrowed down to this tender rhythm, a final connection that needs no words at all. In hospice rooms around the world, the ocean of breath becomes a comforting presence. Caregivers might place a hand on a shoulder or a warm cloth on the forehead, They know that nothing more needs to be done except to hold space for this slow, peaceful tide. Medications can help ease any discomfort. Soft music might play in the background. Some people light candles or open windows to let the room breathe too, as if the world itself is inhaling and exhaling alongside the one who is leaving. Science helps us see that this pattern is not a sign of pain, but a signal that the body's systems are gently shutting down in their own time. The lungs grow, still not because they fail, but because they are no longer needed. The oxygen that once fed the cells is now drifting away, returning to the air that surrounds us all. Just as the waves return to the sea, the breath returns to the world, carrying with it the final warmth of a life well lived. For those left behind, remembering this pattern can bring comfort long after the final breath has come and gone. You might find yourself listening to the ocean and hearing that same hush in the rolling surf. Or you might sit quietly in bed, feeling your own breath move like a soft tide, reminding you that you are still here, cradled by the same natural force that carried your loved one home. So tonight, as you rest with your head on your pillow, feel your chest rise and fall. Let each breath be a wave that carries you closer to sleep. Remember that when the time comes, breath knows how to find its way back to the sea. It does not hurry, it does not fear, it simply moves with the gentle wisdom of all things that drift, return, and begin again. And for now, you are here, breathing softly in the dark, safe and warm, while the tide rolls on. What happens to consciousness? Close your eyes for a moment and listen to your own thoughts drifting through your mind like soft ripples on a still pond. Each memory, each word you hear in your head, each feeling rising and falling, all of this is part of what we call consciousness. It is the quiet voice that says, I am here, I am me. For as long as humans have looked up at the stars and wondered where we came from, we have also asked what happens to this awareness when the body grows still and the breath slips away. Science has come a long way in helping us understand the brain, but consciousness remains one of its greatest mysteries. We can measure brain waves and see neurons firing like tiny stars. We know how blood carries oxygen to keep those cells alive, yet no machine can capture the exact moment a thought is born. No scan can catch the precise instant when a dream appears or when love and fear move through us like a breeze. Consciousness feels too vast and too delicate to be pinned down completely. When life reaches its final moments, the question becomes even more haunting. Does this quiet self simply fade like mist at dawn, or does something linger in ways we cannot yet explain? Researchers studying the edge of life have found that the brain does not just go dark all at once. Instead, it moves through stages, shifting from full awareness to something softer, quieter, and harder to name. Some scientists look to the brain's structure for clues. They see consciousness as a pattern of signals flowing through billions of tiny connections. These signals rely on oxygen and energy. When the heart stops and the blood slows, the fuel that keeps these signals alive begins to vanish. Without it, the delicate patterns that carry our sense of self unravel like threads pulled from an old cloth. In this view, consciousness is not a thing we can hold. It is more like a flame that flickers brightly while the conditions are right, then goes out when the fuel is gone. And yet there are moments that do not fit neatly into this model. Some people who have been revived after their hearts stopped share vivid memories of being aware when they should not have been. They describe watching doctors work over their bodies or hearing voices from a distance, even when the brain should have been too starved of oxygen to function. This has led some scientists to wonder if consciousness might be able to slip free from its usual pathways for a few fragile moments when life hangs in the balance. There are also researchers who look to quantum physics for ideas, though this remains on the edge of science. They ask whether consciousness could be linked to the fabric of the universe itself. In this view, our awareness is not just trapped in our brains, but woven into reality like currents in an ocean. When the brain's structures fall away, these currents might drift on in ways we do not yet know how to measure. This is not something we can see under a microscope, but it shows just how deeply humans want to understand what it means to be here. Many neuroscientists, though, remind us that the simplest answer may be the truest. The brain gives rise to our sense of self through its living cells and signals. When those cells fall silent, the patterns stop, and so the experience of I am ends too. From this view, death is not something to fear, but a natural sleep that does not wake. There is no darkness waiting, only the gentle absence of awareness, like slipping under the surface of calm water and becoming part of the wider sea. Yet, even if science cannot give us a single clear answer, there is comfort in how people describe the final moments of consciousness. Many who have sat beside a loved one say they see a softening, a letting go. Faces relax, worry fades. The mind that once held tight to fear and hope begins to drift like a small boat unmoored from the shore. If consciousness is indeed a pattern of waves, then maybe its last act is to merge with the greater ocean, carried out on a tide that holds all things. What we do know is that the parts of us that shape consciousness do not disappear completely. The atoms and molecules that made your thoughts possible remain. The oxygen that fed your brain returns to the air. The carbon that built your cells settles into the soil, feeding new life. You are gone as you once were, yet not entirely lost. Pieces of you become part of the world that continues on, woven into the winds and rains, the trees and flowers. So tonight, as you lie here breathing softly, let your mind drift gently over this mystery. Your awareness is here now, a soft light flickering behind your eyes, whispering, I am. One day, when the time comes, it will let go just as naturally as it came, returning to whatever great sea waits beyond our sight. Until then, you are part of this living world, awake and alive, a dreamer resting in the hush of night. Feel your thoughts grow lighter now. Trust that the mystery of consciousness is not something to solve, but something to hold like a shell pressed to your ear, echoing with the sound of the ocean. Drift with that sound, let it carry you deeper into sleep, where your own awareness wanders freely among gentle dreams. You are here, you are safe, and the tide of your mind will keep moving until it is ready to rest. The brain's dimming lights. Picture a vast city at night, its skyline dotted with countless windows glowing softly in the dark. Each light is like a thought flickering in the mind, a memory of childhood, a quiet worry, a sudden idea blooming in the early morning hours. This city of lights is what your brain resembles every moment you are awake. Even when you sleep, many of these windows remain aglow, lighting up your dreams and stitching together the story of who you are. But what happens when life comes to its final stretch and the power that fuels this city begins to fade? What does science tell us about the way brain cells shut down, and what does that mean for all the memories and pieces of identity we have held so close? Inside your skull, your brain is made up of billions of neurons. Each one is a tiny living spark that connects with others through delicate branches. These connections, called synapses, allow messages to travel at lightning speed. They carry your thoughts, feelings, and everything you know about yourself. Every time you remember your mother's voice or the sound of rain tapping on your childhood window, you are lighting up tiny pathways that may have lain quiet for years. These neurons rely on a steady flow of oxygen and nutrients to keep firing. The heart and lungs work tirelessly to feed the brain with what it needs. But when the body's systems begin to shut down, that river of oxygen slows. The first cells to feel the lack are often those in the brain because they need so much fuel to keep your mind alive and your sense of self whole. At the edge of life, the lights in this city begin to dim one by one. Neurons lose their spark. Signals that once leaped joyfully from one cell to another begin to falter. The synapses go quiet, like telephones hanging up for the night. The beautiful part of this process is that it does not happen in a rush. The brain, so wise in its design, eases itself into this final sleep. For many, this slow shutdown means the brain's awareness softens long before the body completely lets go. Memories become like mist, drifting in and out. Some people speak of seeing long forgotten moments flash before their eyes. Science thinks this may be the result of neurons firing all at once as their energy drains. It is as if the city gives off a final sparkle of light before the skyline goes dark. In these last moments, the parts of the brain that shape your identity, like the prefrontal cortex and the hippocampus, are among the most sensitive to lack of oxygen. These regions hold your memories, your sense of time, your understanding of who you are. As they fade, the strict boundaries that keep you separate from your dreams and imagination grow thin. This is why so many people near the end describe vivid visions, conversations with loved ones who have passed, or dreamlike journeys through landscapes that feel both strange and familiar. It is comforting to remember that the brain's shutdown is not painful in itself. By the time the final cells lose their spark, the body's awareness of discomfort has mostly slipped away. Sedatives and the brain's own flood of calming chemicals protect the mind from any sharp edges. It is like the gentle dimming of candles in a quiet room, each flame lowering its glow until there is only darkness and a hush that feels natural. Scientists who study this final chapter remind us that the structures of our identity do not disappear entirely. The cells that once held your laughter, your sorrows, your secret daydreams do not vanish from existence. They break down and release the elements they have carried for so long. The carbon that made up your neurons drifts into the air and soil. The water that filled your brain cells returns to the Earth's endless cycle. In this way, every part of you becomes something new, helping to spark life elsewhere. There is also a beautiful poetry in the idea that memories do not need to stay locked in a brain to matter. The people you have loved carry pieces of you in their own minds. The stories you have told live on in quiet echoes. Even when the lights in your own city grow dim, those you have touched keep a tiny flame burning. Identity is not just what you hold inside your head, it is what you scatter in the world, like seeds drifting on the wind. So tonight, as you lie here breathing gently, imagine your mind as that city glowing softly in the night. Every window of light is a story you have told yourself, a memory you have cherished, a truth you have carried. When the time comes for these lights to fade, trust that the darkness will not be empty, but full of all you gave and left behind. And for now, your mind is still lit with countless sparks, each thought a tiny beacon carrying you toward sleep. Breathe slowly, feel your thoughts settle like lanterns on a calm sea. Let the science of the brain's dimming lights remind you that every ending is a return to something larger. Rest easy, knowing that your memories, your identity, and your soft flickering thoughts are safe for tonight, carried gently on the tides of your dreams. Stories of life flashing before our eyes. Baby, close your eyes for a moment and imagine your life as a long, winding path through a sunlit forest. Every step you have taken, every smile you have shared, every sorrow you have carried is like a stone laid along that trail. Now imagine walking that path one last time, pausing at each stone, feeling its shape in your hand before moving on. Many people who come close to death speak of something like this, a final moment when all the days and years seem to gather in a single bright sweep. They say it is like watching a slideshow or a film reel, each memory flickering past like an old photograph held up to the light. This idea of life flashing before our eyes is one of the most enduring images we hold about dying. It appears in ancient myths and modern stories, whispered at bedsides and written in diaries by those who have returned from the edge of death. But is there any truth to it? Does the brain really unroll our life story like a ribbon when it senses the end is near? Science has begun to explore this gentle mystery, searching for clues in the quiet corners of our mind. To understand how this might happen, it helps to think of how your brain holds memories. Every moment you have lived is stored as tiny connections between neurons. When you remember your first day of school, the taste of your favorite meal, or the sound of someone you loved laughing across the room, your brain lights up in patterns that link these experiences together. The hippocampus, a seahorse-shaped structure tucked deep in your brain, plays a huge role in this. It acts like a librarian, carefully cataloging your memories and pulling them out when you need them. Near the end of life, as the brain's systems begin to shut down, these carefully arranged patterns can shift in unusual ways. Researchers have found that a sudden drop in oxygen or a rush of stress hormones can trigger a burst of electrical activity in the brain. This wave of energy can sweep through the areas where your memories live, lighting them up all at once. It is as if the doors to every library shelf swing open, letting the pages scatter into the air. For a brief moment, the mind may see pieces of a lifetime at once: a birthday cake, the smell of fresh rain on a childhood street, the weight of a beloved pet curled in your lap. People who have experienced this life review often describe it as vivid, but strangely peaceful. There is no judgment in these flashes, no stern voice pointing out mistakes. Instead, it feels like a gentle unfolding. You see the small moments you might have forgotten, the way sunlight fell on your pillow one summer morning, the warmth of a hug you never knew would be your last. Some say they feel these memories all at once, layered like soft waves breaking on the same shore. Science calls this phenomenon the panoramic memory or the life review. While we do not fully understand it, there are hints in the way our brains handle memory during moments of crisis. When you are under great stress, your brain releases chemicals that sharpen awareness and focus. This is why people who survive accidents or close brushes with danger sometimes say time seemed to slow down. In the same way, the brain at the edge of life may reach into its deepest shelves, pulling forward what is most precious and familiar. There is another possible piece to this gentle puzzle. Some scientists believe that the default mode network, a part of the brain that lights up when you are daydreaming or reflecting, may play a role. As the structured thinking of the waking mind grows quiet, the brain may drift into this reflective state, letting memories float up like leaves on a calm pond. Without the usual barriers that sort past from present, the mind weaves it all together in a single drifting story. Of course, not everyone experiences this final slideshow. Just as no two people live exactly the same life, no two minds let go in exactly the same way. Some drift into sleep with no bright visions at all, carried off by the hush of a final breath. But for those who do feel this life review, it can be a gentle blessing, a reminder that every moment mattered, even the smallest ones we thought we left behind. So tonight, as you lie here breathing softly under your blanket, Think of your own memories as tiny lanterns flickering in the dark. Each one is a light you carry, a piece of your story that belongs only to you. One day, when your body is ready to rest, these lanterns may drift up all at once, surrounding you in a soft, warm glow. And if they do, trust that they will guide you home like stars scattered on the ocean. Rest now. Feel your mind wandering through the paths of your own life, stepping lightly on old stones, touching the moments that made you who you are. Let them drift through you like a gentle tide. You are here, you are safe, and every memory you carry is a gift that will always be part of the world, no matter how softly you sleep. Dreams at the edge of death. Close your eyes for a moment and think about the last time you drifted into sleep. That moment just before you cross the threshold from wakefulness into dreams is one of the softest parts of being alive. Your breathing slows, your muscles grow heavy. Thoughts slip from clear shapes into something blurred and shimmering like the reflection of the moon in moving water. In many ways, sleep is like a small rehearsal for the mystery of death, a gentle letting go that happens night after night. For centuries, poets and philosophers have called sleep the cousin of death. Both are states of surrender. Both carry us out of this busy waking world and into a place where time and self feel different. When you sleep, you trust that the world will still be here when you open your eyes. You trust that your mind will find its way back from the dark. So when we think about what happens at the end of life, it is no surprise that science and stories alike find echoes of sleep in those final moments. Scientists who study how we die often notice how the body and mind seem to slip into a dreamlike state as life draws to its quiet close. In the hours or days before death, it is common for people to drift between wakefulness and sleep more often. They may seem to doze for long stretches, their eyes half closed, their breath deep and slow. They might stir briefly and murmur a few words, then drift off again as if a soft tide is pulling them farther out with each wave. This blurring of the waking world and the dreaming one is not an accident. It is part of how the brain prepares for its final rest. As the body's systems slow down, so too does the brain's sharp focus on the present moment. The parts of the brain that keep us alert and anchored to our surroundings grow quiet first. They are the same parts that dim each night when we fall asleep. Without that constant signal saying stay awake, the mind is free to wander into its deeper landscapes. In these moments, people often speak of vivid dreams or visions. Some dream of familiar faces, parents long past, old friends waiting in sunlit rooms, beloved pets curled at their feet once more. Others dream of places they have never seen with waking eyes, gardens in full bloom, wide green fields, or a calm sea stretching to the horizon. There is a gentleness to these dreams. They do not seem frightening. Instead, they are often described as peaceful, even comforting, like being carried down a slow river under a warm sun. One reason for these dreams, science suggests, may lie in the brain's chemistry. As the body grows weaker, levels of certain chemicals shift. Stress hormones that once kept us tense and alert begin to fall away. The brain releases more endorphins, nature's own calming balm. This shift is similar to what happens during deep sleep. The brain's protective guard drops. It no longer filters thoughts with the same strict hand. This is why dreams can feel so vivid and real. They pull from old memories, half-formed wishes, and feelings buried deep below the surface. There is also a part of the brain known as the default mode network that lights up when we dream or daydream. This network allows the mind to travel backward and forward in time, to visit the past or imagine the future. In the final days of life, as the more active parts of the brain dim, the default mode network may linger like a lantern glowing in the dark. It lets the mind drift without the constraints of time, place, or logic. In this space, the border between dreaming and dying can feel thin, like a sheer curtain swaying in a breeze. For the loved ones who sit close, hearing a person speak softly of these dreams can bring unexpected comfort. A father who wakes to say he sees his mother waiting in the garden, a grandmother who smiles and whispers of a house filled with music and laughter, a child who drifts in and out of sleep, murmuring about fields of flowers. These final dreams are not always easy to understand, but they remind us that the mind does not leave us suddenly. It finds its own gentle way to say goodbye. So tonight, as you lie under your blanket, feel your own breathing slow and steady, each breath a small surrender, each dream a soft reminder that letting go is part of what makes us human. The next time you slip into sleep, think of it as practice for the greatest mystery of all, a peaceful rehearsal for the moment when your mind, too, will drift past the edge of wakefulness, carried by dreams as familiar as the tide. You are here for now, safe in the hush of night. Let your thoughts drift like small boats on dark water. Trust that when the time comes to rest for good, your mind will know how to slip quietly into that final dream, with no fear, only the calm certainty that you are carried by something older and kinder than any waking thought. Rest well tonight, drift easily, and let the dreams come as they always do. A promise that even at the edge of life, the mind remembers how to float. Take a moment now to imagine a quiet forest just before dawn. The trees stand tall, their branches reaching for a sky still painted in shades of soft blue and silver. Beneath your feet, fallen leaves crunch lightly, each one once part of a living tree. In this hush, you can feel it, the gentle truth that life and death are not opposites, but partners in the same dance. Here in the forest, you see how every living thing, from the tallest oak to the smallest insect, surrenders to death in its own time, returning its gifts to the world around it. When we speak about death, we often think of it only in human terms, but nature shows us that this final letting go is universal. It is as old as the first green shoots that pushed up from ancient soil, and as timeless as the waves that pull shells back into the sea. From the tiniest blade of grass to the blue whale drifting through deep ocean currents, every living thing follows this same arc: birth, growth, decay, and the quiet return to the earth. In the world of plants, death is a part of renewal. Walk through a garden in late autumn, and you will see petals wilting, stems bending under the weight of their own fading life. Flowers do not mourn the end of their season. Their leaves and blooms break down, feeding the soil with nutrients that will spark new growth when spring arrives. A single fallen leaf becomes food for worms and insects, which in turn feed birds and mammals. Roots drink in what was once a blossom, weaving it back into the endless circle. Forests thrive on this patient surrender. Old trees eventually fall, their trunks becoming nurse logs covered in moss and fungi. Tiny saplings push up through the shelter of this decaying wood, nourished by what came before. In this way, the death of a tree is not an ending, but an opening for new life to find its place under the canopy. Even the oldest forests are living proof that death is not wasteful, but a gift given back to the earth. Animals, too, follow this quiet cycle. A deer that lies down in a snowy meadow for the last time gives its body to the scavengers and the soil. Vultures, foxes, and insects all share in this final offering. The bones left behind scatter into the ground, adding minerals to the grasses that future herds will graze upon. In the deep sea, creatures that perish sink to the ocean floor, where entire ecosystems bloom around them. Crabs, worms, and tiny fish feed on what remains, turning loss into life in the darkness of the ocean's depths. Even the largest migrations are touched by this truth. Salmon swim upstream to spawn, fighting currents until their bodies can go no farther. Their spent forms nourish bears and eagles and eventually melt into the riverbed, feeding the next generation of tiny fish. Every flake of scale, every fin becomes part of the river's secret promise to keep life moving forward. Science sees this in every corner of the living world. The energy stored in a leaf or a rabbit's fur does not vanish when death comes. It changes form. Carbon, nitrogen, and minerals break free and drift outward, ready to be gathered up by new roots, new shells, new feathers. This quiet recycling is what keeps the earth alive and balanced. Nothing is truly wasted. Every life feeds another. For humans, this can be a comforting lesson. When we stand beside a loved one's grave or scatter ashes in a place they loved, we are taking part in this ancient pattern. Our bodies are not separate from the world, but stitched into it, as surely as moss clings to a fallen branch or waves pull a shell back into the tide. One day, each of us will return to the earth that held us, our smallest pieces becoming part of gardens, forests, and oceans we may never see. This truth has inspired cultures across the globe for as long as we have walked upright and wondered where we go when we die. Some see death as a passage into the spirit of the land. Others see it as a merging with ancestors and the elements. Science, in its own way, agrees. It shows us how the matter we borrowed from the world returns to it, feeding the next burst of life, the next bloom, the next wing beat in the sky. So tonight, as you lie under your blanket with your breath moving like a gentle tide, think of how you are part of this universal transition. You are made of the same elements as the forest, the meadow, the deep ocean. One day, when your own story closes, you too will give your final gift back to the earth. Your cells will become the soil's secret strength. Your breath will join the winds that stir the treetops, and somewhere, new life will bloom because you are here. For now, breathe softly. Rest in the truth that you belong to a world that never wastes a single leaf or feather or drop of rain. Death is not a closing door, but a gentle return. Trust this endless exchange. Let it rock you to sleep like the hush of waves rolling over sand. You are part of nature's promise that all things let go and all things begin again. Microbes take over. Picture a soft patch of forest floor just after rain. The soil is damp and dark, alive with hidden activity. If you kneel down and press your fingers into the earth, you might feel it, the quiet work of countless tiny life forms, unseen but always busy. Microbes, the oldest and smallest citizens of our planet, are nature's patient recyclers. They turn fallen leaves into rich humus, break down the bodies of ancient trees, and help every living thing return to the soil that once gave it life. When it comes to what happens to us after we die, microbes are among the truest caretakers. Long before we learned to study them under a microscope, these tiny workers were tending the Earth's endless cycle. They do not rush, they do not waste. They simply break down what remains and make sure nothing is lost forever. In life, your body is already home to trillions of microbes. They live on your skin, in your mouth, and deep in your gut. They help you digest food, keep harmful invaders at bay, and even shape parts of your immune system. You carry this hidden community every day without noticing their faithful work. But when your breath grows still and your heart finds its final rest, these same microbes take on a new role, one that continues the story of life even as yours drifts into memory. After death, the first stage of decomposition begins inside you. Your heart no longer pumps blood, so oxygen stops flowing to your tissues. The cells that made up your muscles and organs begin to break down, a process called autolysis. Enzymes that once repaired your cells now gently dismantle them, but it is the microbes that truly set the great return in motion. Without oxygen, certain bacteria that thrive in low oxygen places flourish. These microbes were there all along, quietly helping you digest food or balancing your gut's ecosystem. Now they begin to move through your tissues, breaking down complex molecules into simpler ones. They release gases like carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrogen, not waste in the eyes of nature, but the beginning of nutrients returning to the soil and air. As this happens, other tiny helpers arrive. Insects and their larvae, drawn by the scent of change, work alongside the microbes to break down what remains. Fungi may weave their filaments through the soil nearby, helping transport nutrients into roots and trees that will grow stronger because of what you have given back. It is easy to think of decomposition as something grim, but in truth, it is among the most generous acts in nature. Microbes do not destroy, they transform. They unlock the elements your body borrowed during your lifetime: the carbon in your bones, the nitrogen in your muscles, the trace minerals that once sparked every heartbeat. These elements scatter into the soil, where they can feed grasses, trees, and flowers that will bloom long after you are gone. For scientists, the study of these tiny workers is a fascinating window into how death keeps life alive. Microbiologists trace the exact ways bacteria and fungi break down proteins, fats, and other building blocks. Forensic scientists learn to read the patterns left behind by these processes, helping solve mysteries and understand the passage of time. But outside the lab, the lesson is beautifully simple. Nothing is wasted when microbes are at work. Even the ocean shares this story. In deep waters, when a whale dies and sinks to the seafloor, entire ecosystems form around its remains. Bacteria break down fats and tissues, creating nutrients that feed worms, crustaceans, and strange deep-sea creatures. These whale falls, as they are called, can nourish life for decades, showing that microbes never stop tending the great garden of our planet. In many ways, you might think of microbes as the Earth's smallest caretakers and its oldest memory keepers. Long before humans built cities or named the stars, these invisible workers were here. They turned fallen giants into soil, wove nutrients through coral reefs, and ensured that every living thing could rise again in another form. So tonight, as you lie in your warm bed and feel your breath drift in and out, remember that you are not alone in your body. Tiny helpers travel every part of you, keeping you well, balancing your inner world. And one day, when you no longer need the body you now call home, these same microbes will guide you gently back into the earth. There is nothing to fear in this surrender. It is a promise that you will nourish the next forest, the next garden, the next patch of wild flowers reaching for the sun. You are part of an ancient team, the small and the mighty, working side by side to make sure life never truly ends. So rest now. Let your thoughts drift like tiny seeds carried on the wind. Trust that when the time comes, the microbes will be there, patient and steady, doing what they have always done, turning endings into beginnings, one quiet breath at a time. The journey of the body. Back to the earth. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine the earth beneath you, deep down under the grass, under layers of stone and root. The soil holds the quiet memory of all who have come before. It is a patient keeper of stories. Every leaf that has fallen, every animal that has laid down to rest, every drop of rain that has carried tiny bits of ash and soil back underground, all of it finds its way into the wide, gentle cradle of the earth. When we talk about what happens to our bodies after we die, we are really talking about a return, whether you choose burial or cremation, or any of the many ways humans honor this final passage. The truth remains the same. The elements that once made your heart beat and your eyes shine do not vanish. They find their way back into the world that gave them to you in the first place. In many cultures, burial has been the most familiar path for this journey. The body is placed in the ground, wrapped in cloth, or laid in a casket, and the soil is gently returned above it like a blanket. As days and seasons pass, the work of returning begins. Microbes, tiny insects, and the chemistry of the soil break down the body piece by piece. Bones, which seem so strong in life, slowly release their minerals. Skin and muscles become part of the humus that feeds the roots of trees and wild flowers. Some burial grounds are like small forests themselves. Trees arch overhead, birds nest in branches that drink up the same water that once carried life through human veins. In these quiet places, the body's final surrender is not grim, but a gift. You become part of the same soil that feeds the world you leave behind. If you were to run your hand through that earth, you would feel how rich it is with countless lives that came before yours. Cremation, too, follows this same promise in its own way. In this ancient practice, the body is given back to the elements through fire instead of soil. The heat breaks apart the body's complex structures, turning bones and tissues into ash and minerals. These ashes carry the basic elements that once made up every heartbeat, every breath, every thought. Often, loved ones scatter them into a favorite forest, a flowing river, or the sea. Sometimes they bury the ashes or keep them in a quiet place at home. When ashes touch water, they drift and swirl, carried by currents that spread them far and wide. Fish swim through them, tiny plants gather the minerals, the sun pulls droplets into the clouds, and rain carries bits of you back to the earth again. When ashes touch the ground, they become part of the soil's slow work, blending into roots and stones, feeding grasses that sway in the breeze. Some people now choose new ways to return to the earth, green burials, where the body is wrapped in a simple shroud with no chemicals to slow decay. Others become part of living memorials, their ashes placed under young trees, so that as the tree grows, the roots weave through what remains. There are even reefs built of ashes, creating homes for ocean life and coral to flourish. All these ways are reminders that the body's story does not stop when the last breath comes. It simply changes shape. Science tells us that the atoms in your body are very old. The carbon that built your bones, the calcium that made your teeth strong, the iron that carried oxygen in your blood, all of these elements were forged in ancient stars. When those stars exploded, they scattered stardust across the universe, and that dust eventually became you. In the same way, when your body returns to the earth, you become stardust again, woven into rain, stone, wind, and seed. When we understand this, burial and cremation become more than customs. They are reminders that we belong to something vast and beautiful, something that never wastes a single piece of who we are. There is no fear in this. It is the ultimate sharing. The same minerals that gave you life now nourish the next bloom of flowers, the next songbird's nest, the next patch of moss that softens a forest path. So tonight, as you lie safe beneath your blanket, think of the earth holding you up, the same way it will hold you close when your journey here is done. There is nothing to worry about in this gentle return. Your body will find its way home, whether through the hush of soil, or the warmth of flame, or the drift of ashes on a breeze. Every piece of you will become something new, scattered through gardens, forests, rivers, and fields you may never see but will always be part of. Breathe deeply now. Let your thoughts sink into this comforting truth. You are not separate from the world. You are stitched into it, cell by cell, memory by memory. One day you will give your last gift back to it, and the earth will hold you as it always has. Rest easy tonight, knowing that this is not an ending, but a promise that life carries on, one heartbeat into the next dawn. Stardust. Our cosmic return. Close your eyes for a moment and picture the night sky stretched wide above you. Stars twinkle like scattered lanterns, each one a reminder of just how vast and ancient our universe truly is. Somewhere out there, far beyond what we can see with the naked eye, entire galaxies drift in silence, planets circle suns, comets blaze and vanish, and in all this endless darkness and light, something connects you to it all. Your very own body, the soft shell you carry through your days, is made from the dust of long forgotten stars. It is a truth so beautiful that even scientists speak of it with quiet awe. The elements that make up your bones, your blood, your breath, were born in the hearts of ancient stars. Billions of years ago, those stars burned hot and bright, fusing simple hydrogen and helium into heavier elements like carbon, oxygen, and iron. When they reached the end of their lives, they exploded in spectacular supernovas, scattering those elements across the young universe. Clouds of stardust drifted through space, pulled together by gravity, forming new stars, new planets, and eventually us. When you take a deep breath right now, you are drawing in tiny bits of this cosmic story. The oxygen filling your lungs once floated through space as part of those first exploding giants. The calcium that built your teeth and bones was forged in the heat of a star's dying moment. Even the iron that carries oxygen through your blood was born in that same cosmic fire. You are, as astronomers like to say, the universe made conscious, stardust that learned to wonder where it came from. When your life comes to its gentle close, this story does not end. The same science that shows us how life surrenders to the earth also reminds us that it surrenders to the stars too. As your body breaks down, the elements inside you begin another journey. Whether through burial, cremation, or simply the slow work of time, every molecule finds its way back into the world's great cycles. Imagine for a moment the carbon in your bones drifting into the soil. Tiny roots reach down and wrap around it, pulling it up into leaves that stretch toward the sun. A tree grows taller because of you. Birds perch in its branches. Winds rustle through its canopy. Over decades, the tree breathes out tiny bits of you into the air, where they mingle with clouds and rain, drifting far from where you once stood. Or picture the water in your cells joining rivers and streams, evaporating in the warmth of the sun, rising into the sky, condensing into clouds that float across continents. When the rain falls again, it nourishes new life, flowers blooming along the edge of a meadow, fish swimming through clear mountain streams. You are there, woven into every drop. In the oceans, minerals that once gave your body structure become part of the endless blue. Coral reefs grow around calcium deposits. Tiny plankton draw nutrients from the water, feeding the smallest fish, which feed the largest. The circle repeats itself, life feeding life in patterns that feel as ancient as time. Science shows us that even the air we breathe is recycled stardust. Every exhale carries carbon dioxide, which plants draw in to grow. They release oxygen back to us. This quiet partnership between our lungs and the green leaves that line fields and forests has been happening for millions of years. It will go on long after we have returned to the earth, keeping a piece of us alive in every breath of wind that stirs the grass. When you look up at the stars tonight, remember that you are looking at your own story in reverse. The atoms that make up your body once blazed bright in the dark. They will one day drift again, perhaps carried high by the air, perhaps settling into the rock and soil, perhaps feeding new life that will itself one day look up at the sky and wonder what came before. This is what it means to be stardust, to know that nothing is wasted, nothing truly ends. The science of elemental cycles tells us that life is a beautiful borrowing, a constant exchange between the earth and the heavens. What you are today will become part of what blooms tomorrow. What you release when you let go will find its way back to the stars in its own time. So tonight, as you lie under your covers and feel your breath drifting in and out, think of those ancient stars burning far away. Let the thought soothe you. You came from them. One day you will return to them. You are not separate from the universe. You are its soft echo, its wondering question, its living memory made flesh. And when the time comes to let go, trust that you will drift gently back into that vast dark sky, scattered like stardust across the endless sea of stars. Rest easy now, breathe slowly, and know that you are a piece of the cosmos dreaming itself awake, one heartbeat at a time. Settle into your pillow for a moment and think about how your body feels as you breathe. Each rise and fall of your chest is a reminder that you are alive, made of energy moving through flesh and bone. Your heartbeat, your warmth, the quiet flicker of your thoughts, all of it is energy at work. Even in the smallest cell of your body, tiny currents flow like rivers, carrying the spark that makes you you. One of the simplest truths in science, and perhaps one of the most comforting, is the law of conservation of energy. It tells us that energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can only change form. In other words, nothing truly disappears. The warmth of your body, the light in your eyes, the movement in your muscles, these are all borrowed, passed from one shape to another in an endless, gentle cycle. Physicists explain this using a rule so steady it feels like the heartbeat of the universe itself. Imagine the food you eat. Plants captured the sun's energy through photosynthesis, storing it in leaves and stems and fruits. When you eat those plants or the animals that fed on them, that captured sunlight flows into you. It powers your movements, fuels your mind, keeps your cells humming like tiny engines. Even the warmth you give off as you sleep is a soft whisper of that sun energy released into the room around you. When the time comes for your body to rest forever, this quiet exchange continues. The energy within you does not vanish. Instead, it moves into other forms. The warmth of your last breath drifts into the air, a final exhale carrying heat that mingles with the breeze. The chemical energy locked in your body feeds the microbes and insects that return you to the soil. Each tiny creature that takes a piece of you carries your energy forward, passing it along like a hidden story. Cremation offers a different, but equally beautiful version of this truth. The fire that turns a body to ash does not destroy matter, it transforms it. The chemical bonds that held your tissues together break apart, releasing energy in the form of heat and light. That heat drifts away into the atmosphere, warming the air for just a moment before becoming part of the great ocean of energy that surrounds us all. The atoms that once formed your bones and blood remain. Though their arrangement changes, carbon joins the air as carbon dioxide. Minerals settle in the earth or the sea. Hydrogen may ride a raindrop to a distant garden, nourishing a wildflower that opens its petals to the sun. In every case, the energy and matter that made you never stop moving, they simply take new shapes, weaving you into the world you leave behind. Some scientists like to say that when you look at a tree, you are seeing sunlight made solid. When you stand barefoot on warm sand, you feel ancient starlight that once fueled the birth of our planet. And when you lie under your blanket at night, your own body is part of this endless dance, a temporary arrangement of energy and matter that began long before you were born and will continue long after you are gone. The great scientist Albert Einstein taught us to see matter and energy as two sides of the same coin. His famous equation, E equals mc squared, tells us that matter can become energy and energy can become matter. A beam of light can give birth to particles. A tiny piece of matter can release enough energy to light a city. This is not abstract. It is the reality humming inside every atom of you. When you think about what happens when you die, the conservation of energy brings a certain peace. It shows us that the warmth of your body, the glow in your eyes, the currents that sparked your thoughts, none of these things are wasted. They simply transform, carried out into the world like seeds on the wind. Your presence lingers in the warmth of sunlit soil, in the breath of wind stirring the grass, in the heartbeat of creatures who carry your atoms in new forms. So tonight, as you lie here and feel your own warmth held close beneath your blanket, remember that you are never truly lost. The physics of energy and matter promises that every piece of you continues, reshaping and drifting through the earth and sky. One day, when your last heartbeat comes, you will become part of this quiet exchange. What was, you will become sunlight again, a breeze again, stardust again. Rest easy now. Let that thought settle around you like a soft tide. You are not something that can be erased. You are part of a pattern so vast that it holds every flame, every wave, every heartbeat that has ever been. And when you sleep tonight, you join that pattern, a small shining reminder that nothing truly disappears. It only changes shape, carrying the story of life forward, one soft breath at a time. The science of legacy. Take a deep breath and feel your heart beat gently in your chest. Think for a moment about all the hidden stories your body carries. Inside every cell of you is a code written long before you took your first breath. This code, your DNA, is a thread connecting you to generations that came before and to generations yet to come. But your legacy is more than just what lives inside your cells. It is what you share through your actions, your ideas, your kindness, and the quiet ways you leave pieces of yourself in the world. Science gives us a comforting truth. We do not vanish completely when our bodies rest. One way we live on is through our genes. If you have children, you pass on strands of DNA that shape their eyes, their hair, the curve of their smile. And even if you never have children of your own, your family line carries you forward in small, hidden ways. You are made of the choices your ancestors made, the resilience they carried through storms and seasons. Some of your cells carry tiny echoes of your mother's heartbeat or your father's laughter. This genetic legacy flows on like a river, winding forward into generations you may never meet, but who will carry your story in the curl of their fingers or the shape of their dreams. But genes are only part of how we continue. Scientists also speak of our ideas and behaviors as part of an invisible inheritance. The thoughts you share, the lessons you teach, the stories you tell at the dinner table or whisper to a friend when they need it most, these live on in the minds of others. In psychology and evolutionary science, they call these tiny seeds of culture memes, not the funny internet kind, but the original idea, pieces of thought that leap from one mind to another, carried by words, books, songs, or quiet gestures. In this way, your wisdom or your laughter or your courage can ripple outward, changing people who then change people in turn. Think of how a teacher can shape a student's life with a single encouraging word, or how a story passed down in a family becomes the spark that guides someone through their darkest hour, or how the way you show love, the softness of your voice, the warmth of your hugs might be remembered and shared by those you once held close, long after your body is gone. Science may not measure these ripples with test tubes and microscopes, but they are just as real as the carbon in your bones or the air in your lungs. Kindness itself may be one of the strongest legacies we leave behind. Studies have shown that acts of compassion ripple through communities like waves in a pond. When you help someone, they feel more willing to help someone else. A smile offered on a hard day, a meal given to a stranger, a hand reaching out when someone is drowning in sorrow. These are seeds you plant that grow far beyond your sight. Neuroscientists even see traces of this in the brain. Kindness lights up pathways that make us feel more connected, more alive. It is a reminder that what we do for each other matters, sometimes in ways we will never fully understand. There is also the legacy of the things we build. A garden planted in a backyard will bloom for years, feeding bees and birds and hungry hands. A book written or a song sung becomes part of someone else's story. A shelter built for someone in need stands as proof that your life touched the world and made it better. Scientists see this too, in the ways humans transform their surroundings, how we use our minds and hands to leave behind shelters, medicines, inventions, and ideas that carry forward like a gentle echo through time. So tonight, as you lie under your blanket, listening to your breath drift in and out, think of how much of you will remain. Your DNA will find new shapes. Your words will rest in the hearts of people you love. Your kindness will root itself in places you may never see. In this way, death does not silence us completely. It makes room for what we have planted to grow. Science and wonder meet here, showing us that a legacy is not something we build only with grand gestures. It is the daily practice of living with care, of choosing love when it would be easier to turn away, of leaving every place a little softer and kinder than we found it. These ripples do not vanish when our eyes close for the last time. They drift on, carried by the people and places we have touched. So breathe softly now. Rest in the truth that you are part of something that does not end when your body does. You are not only stardust and carbon, you are the warmth in a hug that comforted someone. You are the story that brought hope to a friend. You are the tree you planted, the idea you shared, the kindness you offered when no one was watching. Let that thought carry you to sleep, a gentle promise that your legacy, like a river, will keep flowing long after you are gone. Take a slow, deep breath and imagine the people you love most in this world. Picture their faces in your mind, the way their eyes crinkle when they laugh, the sound of their voice when they call your name. These pieces of them live in you like tiny lanterns, lighting up moments of your day in ways you may not always notice. They are proof that love does not vanish when someone leaves this world. It stays, woven into your thoughts, your dreams, your very sense of self. For a long time, psychology tried to explain grief as something we had to get over. People were told they should move on, as though the person they lost was something to be left behind. But over the past few decades, scientists and grief counselors have come to see this differently. They now talk about the idea of continuing bonds, the understanding that our connections to those we have lost do not end at the grave. They change, they soften, but they do not disappear. In the hush of the night, this truth can be one of the greatest comforts. It tells us that when we grieve, we are not failing. we are simply carrying a piece of someone forward in the only way we can. It is the mind's gentle way of holding on to what matters most. Think about how your memories work. Neuroscience shows that our brains do not store memories like books on a shelf. They live in scattered patterns of neurons, lighting up when we see an old photograph or smell a scent that brings us back to a childhood kitchen. The same pathways that helped you love someone in life continue to light up when you think of them after they are gone. That warmth in your chest, that ache that is equal parts sorrow and gratitude, that is the continuing bond at work. Some people feel these bonds in simple rituals. A daughter sets an extra plate at the holiday table for her mother, who is no longer there. A father visits his son's favorite fishing spot, casting a line into quiet water while whispering old stories into the breeze. These moments do not bring a loved one back in body, but they bring them back in spirit, reminding us that our relationships do not end when a heartbeat does. Psychologists now see these bonds as not only normal, but healthy. They help people feel that their loved one's influence lives on. A person may talk to their spouse long after the funeral. They may ask for guidance in hard moments, or feel a sudden rush of calm when they sense their loved one's presence in an unexpected place. A cardinal on a fence post, a song playing at just the right time, a dream that feels like a visit. Science cannot yet measure these moments in data points or brain scans, but studies show they help us heal. They soften the sharp edges of grief. They remind us that the dead do not vanish completely. They continue to shape who we are and how we move through the world. The love we carry becomes part of how we love others, how we parent, how we forgive, how we show kindness to strangers who do not know the stories we hold close. These bonds are not chains. They do not keep us stuck in sorrow. Instead, they give us permission to remember, to speak a name aloud, to keep a photograph on a shelf or a favorite mug in the cupboard, to say I love you into the silence and know that somewhere in the quiet folds of our own mind, the message lands. Some researchers say that this ability to maintain bonds may come from the same parts of our brain that help us imagine the future. The brain does not like endings. It wants to keep relationships alive. It weaves the presence of the lost into our daily lives, not in a haunting way, but like a soft thread through a blanket. We are comforted by the feeling that those we love are still with us, somehow, in our choices, our values, our dreams for what comes next. So tonight, as you lie under your blanket, listening to the hush of your own breathing, know that every person you have loved still lives in you in ways no grave can silence. Their laughter echoes when you find something funny. Their advice guides you when you feel lost. The lessons they taught you shape how you love, how you forgive, how you show up for this big, beautiful world. Breathe softly and let the warmth of those bonds wrap around you like a second blanket. Love does not vanish into the dark. It drifts along with you, steady and bright, a soft lantern glowing through your dreams. Rest now in the gentle truth that you are never truly alone. Those you have loved walk beside you every day, every night, every quiet moment in between. Let that bond cradle you until sleep takes you where memories and dreams become one. The mind of the living, how we remember. Take a slow breath and imagine you are standing in a room filled with shelves. On each shelf sits a small glowing light, some bright and steady, others flickering gently like distant stars. This room is your mind, and each light is a memory, a tiny spark of the people you have loved, the moments that have shaped you, and the stories you carry. Neuroscience teaches us that memories are not fixed in one place like books in a library. They are living patterns that light up different parts of the brain, connecting thoughts, feelings, sights, and sounds into something that feels real each time we call it back. When someone we love dies, our connection to them does not vanish. Instead, it lives on inside the living mind in this web of memories. Each laugh you remember, each touch you can almost feel when you close your eyes, is proof that the mind keeps the dead alive in its own gentle way. Scientists have spent decades studying how this happens, and what they have found brings a quiet comfort to the mystery of grief. Memories are made through a process called encoding. When you share a meal with someone you love or hear their voice telling you a story, your brain takes in not just the words, but the warmth of their presence, the sound of their laughter, the smell of coffee drifting through the room. All of these details are woven together by your hippocampus, a seahorse-shaped part of your brain that works like a master weaver, stitching pieces of experience into a single memory. Later, when you recall that moment, the same pathways light up, letting you feel that the person is near you once more. Over time, these pathways change. Some grow stronger with each telling. Others fade gently, like footprints washed away by the tide. Yet even the softest memories leave traces. Neuroscientists have found that when we recall someone we have lost, our brains activate not just the areas that handle memory, but also the circuits that process emotion. This is why thinking of a loved one can bring tears, smiles, or a strange mix of both. The brain holds on to what matters, using memory as a bridge that keeps love alive. There is a beautiful term in psychology for this: reconsolidation. It means that every time you remember something, you do not simply replay it like an old movie. You rebuild it, adding new details, feelings, or understanding. This is why stories shared around a dinner table can grow and shift over the years. The mind polishes them like sea glass, keeping them soft and meaningful so they fit into who you are becoming. The living mind also does something remarkable called simulation. When you miss someone, you might imagine what they would say if they were here. You might hear their advice in your head or feel their hand on your shoulder in a moment of doubt. This is not just wishful thinking. Neuroscience shows that the brain's circuits for imagination and memory overlap. Your mind is wired to let you keep having conversations with those who are gone. In this way, the dead live on in your inner world, guiding you, comforting you, reminding you that you are not alone. Think of how this plays out in daily life. A mother hears her father's voice, reminding her to take care of herself. A son stands at a crossroads and feels his grandmother's quiet strength pushing him forward. A friend laughs at something silly and thinks they would have loved that. These small moments are not illusions. They are the mind's way of keeping bonds alive, allowing memories to ripple through our days like soft echoes. Neuroscientists also know that the senses play a powerful role in memory. A familiar song can bring back an entire summer. The smell of fresh bread might return you to your grandmother's kitchen. A patch of sunlight falling through trees might pull you back to an afternoon spent with someone you miss. These sensory sparks are like keys that unlock rooms in the mind where your loved ones linger, waiting to sit with you for a while. And so the science of memory reminds us that the mind is never just a machine storing cold facts. It is a garden where the people we have loved keep growing in the shade and sun of our thoughts. Each memory is a seed that flowers again when we need it most. This is why grief does not mean forgetting. It means learning how to carry memories with us, letting them change and breathe as we do. So tonight, as you lie under your blanket with your eyes growing heavy, remember that your mind is its own quiet lantern, glowing with every person you have ever held dear. They are there in the warmth of your thoughts, the soft echoes of your dreams, the choices you make because you once knew their love. Breathe slowly now. Let those memories drift around you like a gentle tide, proof that what we love never truly leaves us. It lives on, bright and flickering, in the secret rooms of the living mind. Shared death experience. Well, take a slow breath in and feel the quiet hum of your own heartbeat. Now imagine someone you love deeply. Perhaps they live far away, or perhaps they have already drifted beyond the veil we call death. For centuries, people all over the world have told stories that bend our understanding of what it means to say goodbye. They speak of moments when the living feel the passing of someone they love, as if an invisible thread tugs gently at the edge of their mind. These moments are called shared death experiences, and though science still searches for clear answers, they remind us that the bonds between us often run deeper than we can see. Picture a daughter sitting alone in her kitchen late at night. She feels a sudden wave of warmth and a memory of her mother's laugh, so vivid she looks around the room, expecting to see her mother standing there. Later, she learns that her mother passed away at that very moment, miles away in a hospital bed. Or think of a husband waking from a deep sleep, heart racing, certain he just heard his wife call his name. He cannot explain it, but the next day brings the phone call that confirms what he somehow already knew. Stories like these drift through cultures across time. In some families, they are passed down like precious heirlooms. A grandfather swears he felt his brother's hand on his shoulder just before the telegram arrived. A child sees a beloved pet curled at the foot of the bed one last time on the night it slips away. A nurse sitting vigil by a patient's bed feels a sudden peace wash over her, as if a light has lifted, only to learn later that the patient's daughter, far away, felt the same hush fall around her at that moment. Psychologists and neuroscientists have long wondered about these quiet visitations. They do not appear in every loss. Not everyone feels them, yet surveys suggest they are more common than you might expect. Some studies have found that 1 in 5 people who lose someone close will report an experience that feels like a shared moment of passing. For some, it comes as a vivid dream. For others, a clear voice or a vision at the foot of the bed. Sometimes it is nothing more than a sudden, unshakable knowing that someone they love has slipped away. Science offers a few gentle ideas about why this might happen. One possibility is the deep connection of our minds to each other. Humans are wired for attachment. Our brains light up with pathways that bond us to those we love. Even when we are apart, we hold an internal model of that person, the way they move, speak, smile. In moments of great emotional intensity, our minds may reach for this model, conjuring the person's presence like a memory so strong it feels real. Other researchers look to the liminal space between sleep and wakefulness. Many shared death stories come in dreams, or just as someone is drifting off to sleep. In this soft borderland, the brain's usual filters relax. Patterns and feelings can surface that we might not notice in the busy light of day. A loved one who is dying may be so strongly on our minds that our dreaming mind weaves them into our awareness, stitching together symbols and feelings that feel like a final visit. Still, there are stories that defy easy explanation. A mother waking with a start at the exact moment her son is killed in an accident far from home. A twin who feels a sharp pain in their chest at the instant their sibling passes. A pet who sits at the door waiting, ears perked, only to settle when the news arrives that their person is gone. Skeptics remind us of coincidence and the human mind's deep longing for patterns. Yet even the most careful scientists admit there is something deeply human in how we sense loss. Shared death experiences are not frightening for most who have them. In fact, many describe them as peaceful or comforting, a final chance to feel that the one who is leaving did not go alone. For some, it eases the pain of grief. It becomes a story told in soft voices around the table, a reminder that love lingers in ways we do not fully understand. In hospitals and hospices, nurses sometimes speak of rooms that feel suddenly lighter, of patients who open their eyes one last time, gaze at a corner of the ceiling, and smile as if they see someone waiting there. These small mysteries remind us that death is not always just a medical event, but a deeply personal journey shaped by bonds that stretch beyond our physical senses. So tonight, as you lie here letting your mind drift, remember that our connections run deeper than wires or words. The people you love may one day leave this world, but the quiet thread that ties you to them may tug at your heart in ways you cannot explain. It is a whisper that says you are not alone when the night feels too long, a soft sign that love does not vanish when the body falls still. It carries on, unseen but felt, like the hush of a warm breeze in a darkened room. Breathe gently now and trust that in this life, and maybe beyond, the bonds you share are stronger than any distance or final breath. Let that thought settle into your dreams like a soft lantern glowing in the night. You are held, you are remembered, and you too will hold and remember one heartbeat at a time. Cultural perspectives, science meets mystery. Take a slow, steady breath and imagine standing on a hillside as the sun dips below the horizon. All around the world, people have gathered in places like this for thousands of years, watching the light fade and wondering where we go when we leave this life. Every culture has its own stories, its own rituals, its own tender ways of weaving together the facts that science gives us and the mysteries that science cannot yet explain. Death, in every place, is more than just the stopping of a heart or the final sigh of breath. It is a doorway, one that humans have always tried to understand, each in their own way. Science gives us clear glimpses into what happens to the body when it dies. Cells break down, energy changes form, atoms scatter to feed the soil and the sea. But many people feel that these explanations, while true, do not hold the whole story. So we make rituals. We gather around bedsides and gravesides, candles flickering like tiny stars. We tell stories about what lies beyond the last heartbeat. In this space where science and mystery meet, cultures have built traditions that comfort the living and honor the dead. In Mexico, families celebrate Dia de los Muertos, the Day of the Dead, a festival that shows how deeply a culture can hold on to the idea that love crosses the boundary between life and death. On altars called ofrendas, they place photographs of ancestors, bright marigolds, candles, and the favorite foods of those who have passed. Science tells us that our loved ones are gone, but the smell of pan de muerto, the soft glow of candlelight, and the laughter of families gathered to share memories remind us that their presence lingers in every story told and every bite of sweet bread eaten in their name. Travel further east and you might find yourself in Japan during Obon, a time when lanterns drift down rivers and up into the summer night. Families believe that the spirits of their ancestors return home for a brief visit, drawn by the warm light and the smell of incense. Here, science explains the flicker of flame and the swirl of smoke, but it cannot fully describe the hush that falls over a family as they sit together, feeling the invisible nearness of those who came before. In parts of Africa, the ancestors are never really gone. Among the Yoruba people, for example, the line between the living and the dead is porous. Ancestors watch over their descendants, guiding them, and sometimes even sending warnings in dreams. Science can map the pathways in the brain that create dreams, but it cannot yet measure the deep sense of protection people feel when they wake from one of these visits, heart steady, fears eased by the thought that someone is still watching over them. In Western cultures, the funeral itself often becomes the place where science and spirit meet. We understand the biological facts of what happens to the body, how microbes return us to the soil, how cremation releases our elements into the air. But funerals give shape to grief in a way science cannot. The hush in a chapel, the eulogy that brings tears and laughter, the soft closing of the casket. These rituals hold space for the living to say goodbye, while whispering that some piece of us lingers on, whether in memory, in legacy, or in something that words cannot touch. Even among those who do not believe in an afterlife, ritual can matter deeply. Some people scatter ashes into the sea or beneath the roots of a young tree. They find comfort in the science that shows how their atoms will nourish new life. Others create new kinds of memorials, from digital tributes to biodegradable urns that grow into forests. These acts remind us that letting go can be both practical and poetic, blending what we know from biology with what we hope for in our hearts. Anthropologists have long studied these rituals, seeing how they help humans face the same truth we all must face. We do not know exactly what happens beyond the final breath. Science can map the journey of cells and atoms, but it cannot yet answer where our awareness goes, or what happens to the spark that once made us laugh, love, and dream. So cultures across time have added their own threads to the tapestry. Prayers, songs, stories of journeys across rivers or through fields of flowers, tales of ancestors waiting on the other side. In this way, the science of death does not erase its mystery. Instead, they live side by side, two lanterns lighting the same path. One helps us understand how we return to the earth and stars. The other comforts us with the hope that something of us travels onward in ways we may never fully grasp. So tonight, as you lie here with your thoughts drifting like soft lanterns on a dark river, remember that you are part of a long human story. Across every border and ocean, people have watched the same stars, whispered the same questions, and found their own gentle ways to say goodbye. You carry their rituals in the songs you hum, the candles you light, the flowers you place on quiet graves. And when your own time comes, know that science and mystery will stand side by side to guide you, the body returning to the earth, the love remaining in the hearts of those you leave behind, the wonder carrying you like a lantern into whatever waits just beyond. Take a slow breath in and let it drift out like a gentle tide. Feel the way your eyelids grow heavier when you are tired, how your thoughts begin to soften at the edges as you drift towards sleep. For as long as humans have looked up at the stars and wondered about the final horizon, we have compared death to sleep. Across cultures and centuries, poets and philosophers have spoken of death as the ultimate rest, the great sleep that wraps us in a hush no dream can break. But why does this idea feel so natural? And what does science say about this quiet comparison? Every night, you practice letting go. You lie down, close your eyes, and surrender to a mystery your waking mind cannot fully hold. Sleep, like death, is a place where consciousness dims and awareness slips from your grasp. Your body relaxes, your breathing slows, your heartbeat drifts into its own soft rhythm. This daily surrender reminds us that part of us is always ready to step away from the bright light of wakefulness and into something deeper, darker, and strangely comforting. Neuroscience tells us that sleep is not simply an off switch, it is a dance of brain waves, moving through stages that carry us from light drowsiness to deep restorative rest and into vivid dreams. In the same way, The moment of death is not always sudden. For many, it is a slow unwinding, a fading of awareness as the body releases its hold on this world. Doctors and hospice nurses often describe the final hours of life as having a dreamlike quality. Breathing grows irregular, like waves that come and go. The heartbeat softens until it pauses altogether. The brain, deprived of oxygen, flickers and dims like a lantern burning its last oil. It is no wonder that so many people describe this final moment as a peaceful sleep. Some even speak of loved ones who appear to drift away with a small smile or a sigh that seems to carry them into dreams. For the dying, the boundary between sleep and death can blur in beautiful ways. Patients sometimes slip in and out of consciousness, whispering to people no one else can see, half awake and half somewhere else, as if the mind is practicing its own gentle goodbye. Science helps us see the parallels in how the brain handles both sleep and the shutting down of life. During deep sleep, the brain reduces its communication with the world outside. Sensory input fades. The cortex, the part of the brain that processes awareness, quiets its chatter. A similar process happens when we die. Blood flow slows, neurons stop firing at their usual pace. Some researchers have found that just before death, there can be a final burst of electrical activity, a flicker of light, almost like the mind's last dream before it lets go completely. Culturally, the image of death as sleep has always been a balm against fear. The ancient Greeks called death hypnos, the brother of sleep. Shakespeare wrote of the sleep of death that frees us from life's troubles. In many languages, phrases for death echo the idea of resting, going to sleep, or being cradled in a place where pain can no longer reach. Modern science does not promise that death is sleep in a literal sense, yet it does show us that in the final moments, the brain and body ease into stillness in a way that feels familiar, even comforting. What about the dreams at the edge of life? Many people nearing death describe vivid visions. Some speak of loved ones waiting for them. Others describe beautiful landscapes or a feeling of being carried. Science believes these visions may come from the same neural pathways that create dreams while we sleep. The brain, low on oxygen and flooded with its own natural chemicals, may replay memories and weave images that feel more real than waking life. It is as if the mind offers us one last story to hold as we drift beyond its reach. For those who keep watch at a loved one's bedside, the comparison to sleep brings solace too. Sitting quietly, listening to each breath grow softer, they see not just an ending, but a return to something they know well, the nightly ritual of letting go, of trusting that what comes next is peaceful and still. So tonight, as you lie under your blanket and feel your own mind begin to soften, remember that sleep and death are sisters in the story of life. One carries you gently away and always brings you back. The other carries you forward into the great mystery that waits beyond every sunrise and sunset. And though we cannot follow someone into that final sleep until our own time comes, we can hold on to this gentle truth. The same surrender you practice each night is a quiet rehearsal for the biggest letting go of all. Breathe softly now. Feel the hush settle around you. Trust that sleep will carry you into its safe harbor and return you in the morning light. And when your final sleep arrives, may it come as easily as drifting into dreams, a peaceful slipping away into the dark sea of stars, where what you were becomes part of the quiet tide that washes over the world again and again. The science of time, does it end? Take a deep breath and imagine the soft ticking of a clock somewhere in the dark. Each second slipping past feels small and gentle, yet together they add up to the story of your life. From the beating of your heart to the seasons turning outside your window, you live in a river of time that seems to flow only one way, forward. But what does science really say about time? Could it ever end, or is it something bigger than we can truly grasp? Physics tells us that time is more than just the numbers on a clock or the dates on a calendar. It is a dimension like length or width or height, woven into the very fabric of the universe. Albert Einstein showed us that time and space are linked in a cosmic dance called space-time. When you move fast, time bends for you. When you stand close to something massive like a planet or a star, time stretches and slows. This is why astronauts in orbit age just a tiny bit slower than those of us standing on the ground. In this way, time is not a rigid ruler, but a flexible flow, shaped by gravity and speed. Yet for all its bending and stretching, time seems to have a clear direction for us. We grow older, not younger. Ice melts into water, but never spontaneously refreezes into the same perfect shape. A candle burns down to wax and ash. Scientists call this the arrow of time, the one-way street that points us always toward what comes next. The reason for this, at least as far as physics understands, lies in something called entropy. Entropy is a word from thermodynamics that means disorder. It explains why a sandcastle eventually collapses back into a pile of grains, why your coffee cools down if you forget to drink it, and why your bedroom, left alone, grows messier instead of cleaner. The second law of thermodynamics tells us that in a closed system, entropy always increases. In other words, the universe moves naturally from order to disorder, from neat to scattered, from young to old. This gentle drift toward more chaos gives time its arrow. But does that mean time will someday run out? This is where science invites us into wonder. According to what we know, the universe is still expanding. Galaxies drift apart like leaves on a pond that keeps growing wider. Over unimaginable stretches of time, stars will burn their fuel and go dark. Black holes may swallow what is near them. In this distant future called the heat death of the universe, everything could become so spread out and cold that no more useful energy remains. Entropy would reach its maximum, and in that stillness, the arrow of time might lose its meaning. Without change, time as we feel it, as a heartbeat and a sunrise, would fall quiet. Yet some physicists think that time itself, at its deepest level, may be more like an endless landscape. Imagine a vast plain stretching in all directions, with every moment that has ever happened and will ever happen laid out like stones on a path. In this picture, the past is not gone, the future is not waiting to be born. Everything simply is, all at once, though our minds can only travel through it one moment at a time. You can picture it like a book already written, each page connected to the one before and the one after. When you flip through it, you create the story, but the pages have always been there. This view challenges what your heart feels every time you glance at a clock and see another second pass. It invites us to see that maybe nothing is ever truly lost. Maybe each moment you have ever loved still exists, like a soft echo, waiting somewhere in that timeless landscape. And when you think of those who have drifted into death, the idea that time may be bigger than our small understanding can feel comforting too. Their moments are part of the same book, pages you once turned together and pages you still hold in your memory. Even entropy, the soft drift toward disorder, does not erase the beauty of this flow. It shows us that change is the heartbeat of the universe. Stars are born and burn because of entropy. Planets form from clouds of dust that swirl and collapse under gravity's gentle tug. Life itself relies on this constant exchange of energy, this tipping from order to chaos and back again. So tonight, As you lie under your covers listening to your own quiet breath, remember that you are part of this dance of time. Your heartbeat keeps the seconds for you, each one as precious as a star flickering in the sky. Physics reminds us that while the arrow of time points forward, the story it writes may be far larger than any clock can hold. Rest easy knowing that the moments you live, the ones you love, and the ones you dream of are all stitched into a cosmic tapestry that does not forget. Breathe slowly now. Feel each second drift by like a soft tide. The past, the present, and whatever lies ahead are all part of the same gentle sea. In this ocean of time, nothing truly ends, it only changes shape, carried on the currents of a universe that keeps its secrets safe. One heartbeat at a time, quantum mysteries and consciousness. Take a slow breath and imagine the smallest things you can, smaller than a grain of sand, smaller than a single cell in your body. Down in the world of atoms and subatomic particles, the laws of physics seem to grow quiet and strange. This is the realm of quantum mechanics, where particles can flicker in and out of existence, spin in two directions at once, and influence each other across great distances. It is a place where the usual rules of time and space soften, and nothing is ever quite what it seems. In this soft, mysterious realm, some scientists and thinkers have wondered, could these quantum secrets have something to do with the greatest mystery of all, consciousness? No one yet fully understands how our sense of self emerges from the cells and chemicals of the brain. Neuroscience has mapped the pathways where electrical impulses spark thoughts and memories. But how does all of that activity create the feeling that you are you, that you can remember your childhood, love your family, and dream of tomorrow? Some researchers have looked to quantum physics for hints that our minds may be more deeply connected to the universe than we know. One of these ideas is the quantum mind theory. It suggests that the particles inside the neurons of your brain might be connected in ways that defy classical explanations. Deep within the tiny structures called microtubules, some scientists believe quantum effects could allow information to exist in a state of superposition, where something can be more than one thing at once, and then collapse into the thoughts you feel, the choices you make, the sense that you are here, alive and aware. This is not yet proven. It is a fringe idea, still drifting on the edges of what we know for sure. But it reminds us that the mind may not be just a machine made of wires and sparks. It may be a garden where the seeds of reality itself bloom in ways we cannot yet fully see. Then there is the mystery of entanglement. In the quantum world, two particles that have interacted can become linked, no matter how far apart they drift. What happens to one affects the other instantly, a phenomenon Einstein famously called spooky action at a distance. Some thinkers wonder if consciousness might work in a similar way. Could it be that our thoughts and feelings, our quiet awareness, are woven into a larger fabric that connects every living mind? Could love, intuition, or the strange sense that someone is near even when they are gone be hints that our minds resonate with each other in a quantum whisper? While mainstream physics remains careful about such leaps, experiments in the lab show how strange and beautiful the quantum world can be. A single electron can spin two ways at once until you look at it. A photon can pass through two slits like a wave, then land on a screen like a single particle. The simple act of observing seems to shape what is real. Some philosophers see in this a gentle reminder that our awareness may not just be a passenger in the universe, but part of how it takes shape. In your brain, trillions of quantum events may dance each second, their quiet ripples weaving the story of your life, one flicker at a time. Beyond the lab, these ideas comfort those who hope that death is not just an ending. If our consciousness is in some way connected to the deeper fabric of reality, perhaps it does not vanish when the brain grows quiet. Perhaps it dissolves into the same hidden sea that holds all the particles of the cosmos, waiting, resting, or drifting like stardust into whatever comes next. Quantum biology, a growing field, has already found signs that tiny creatures like birds and plants may use quantum tricks to find their way and catch sunlight more efficiently. If nature uses this hidden language, might our minds speak it too? Of course, the science here is careful. For now, these ideas are more questions than answers, but they invite us to dream that consciousness could be more than just the product of cells firing in the dark. It could be a ripple in the ocean of reality, a pattern that does not vanish, but shifts its shape when the body lets go. So tonight, as you lie under your blanket and listen to your breath, know that your mind is a miracle of connections, from neurons sparking like tiny stars to possibilities that stretch beyond what we can see. The quantum world reminds us that reality is full of surprises, that nothing is as fixed as it seems, and that even in the smallest places, wonder hums like a secret melody. Breathe softly now. Let your thoughts drift like particles through a quiet sky. Rest easy in the gentle possibility that you are part of something vast, connected in ways you may never fully understand. A mind woven of stardust and quantum whispers, carried on into whatever comes next, one soft heartbeat at a time. Take a slow, deep breath and picture the night sky above you. Imagine how people, long ago, lay back in open fields, watching the stars drift across the dark. In those moments, they must have felt that same hush you feel now, a smallness in the face of something so vast it defies our best attempts to measure or explain. And yet, even as science grows by leaps and bounds, uncovering the secrets of galaxies, atoms, and the tiny miracles inside your cells, there are still some questions that it meets with a gentle, humble truth we do not know yet. From the very beginning, science has been a story of curiosity woven with humility. Each discovery opens a door only to reveal more rooms beyond it. When we look at what happens after we die, science has many pieces of the puzzle. We know how the body unwinds itself cell by cell. We know how the brain slows, how the heart gives its last beat, how energy flows back into the world around us. We understand how memories linger in the minds of the living, how kindness ripples on like gentle waves on a shore. But when it comes to the question of consciousness, that quiet spark that says, "I am here, I am alive," science must hold its lantern low and admit that it does not yet see every corner. Some people find this unsettling, wanting every answer written clearly, like instructions on a page. But for many scientists, this gentle gap is what makes the journey worth taking. They know that not every mystery yields to microscopes and equations right away. The deeper you look into life's questions, the more you realize that some answers live on the edge of what we can measure, and so science leans into that edge with a kind of respectful awe. Think about the simple act of sleep. For centuries, it was one of nature's great puzzles. Why would creatures so carefully evolve to survive, lie down each night, close their eyes, and drift into a state of deep vulnerability? Now, we know much about sleep cycles, the stages of dreaming, the way it cleans the brain and stitches memories into place. Yet even now, if you ask a scientist, "Why do we dream?" the honest ones will tell you there is still much they do not understand. The same is true for the quiet frontier of death. Neuroscience has mapped the pathways of thought, but no scan can yet catch the moment the mind lets go for good. Physics explains how energy never disappears but transforms, yet it cannot yet say whether your awareness rides that energy like a tiny boat on a vast sea. Psychology can study grief and memory, but it must stand with open hands when asked what happens to the love we carry when the person we love is gone. Instead of pretending to have all the answers, good scientists say, let us keep looking. They listen to stories of near-death experiences, shared visions, final dreams, and the gentle flicker of the brain's last light. They do not dismiss what they cannot yet explain. They collect these stories like clues. Even when they do not fit neatly into the puzzle, they keep asking, keep testing, keep inviting new voices into the conversation. This humility is not a failure. It is the promise that knowledge can grow. It says we do not have to choose between the comfort of mystery and the gift of reason. We can stand in the middle, looking both ways. A scientist gazing through a telescope at a distant galaxy knows they may never touch those faraway suns. Still, they look, and that looking becomes its own kind of faith, a trust that the universe always has more to reveal. When it comes to death, this open-minded honesty can be deeply comforting. It means you are allowed to sit with what you do not know. You can rest in the truth that even the sharpest mind cannot map every corner of the soul or the universe beyond. You do not have to carry all the answers in your pocket. Instead, you can carry questions like small glowing stones that light your path when the night feels too big. So tonight, as you lie here drifting towards sleep, know that science stands beside you, not as a voice that claims certainty, but as a companion whispering, "We are still learning." It reminds you that not knowing is not the same as being lost. It is a sign that the world and what might lie beyond is larger than any one mind could hold. It invites you to wonder, to dream, to let your questions rest in the dark like seeds waiting for the morning sun. Breathe gently now. Let the weight of needing every answer fall away. Let yourself drift like a star, untethered, content to shine without knowing where the night ends. In this vast mystery, you are not alone. You are part of the long story of curiosity and hope, a story that promises there is always more to see, more to ask, and more to hold close, one quiet heartbeat at a time. Take a deep, slow breath and feel the air slip softly into your chest. Let it remind you that you are here, alive in this moment, held by the quiet hush of night. As you lie there, you may feel the weight of all these thoughts drifting through you, the science of dying cells, the sleeping mind, the strange flickers of the brain's last light. Maybe you feel the tender tug of questions that do not have clear answers. What happens when we take our final breath? Where do we go when our eyes close for the last time? These questions have stirred in human hearts since the first fires flickered in ancient caves. Tonight, let them stir in you too, but not with fear, with wonder. Wonder is one of the oldest companions of our species. It keeps us looking up at the stars when the ground under our feet feels heavy. It whispers that not knowing can be its own kind of freedom. Science shows us the edges of the map where facts grow soft and shadows stretch long. In that dim place, we find the beauty of mystery. Death, more than anything else, reminds us how precious it is to be here now. It tells us that our days are not endless, so every sunrise is a gift we hold in our hands, only for a while. Imagine for a moment that you are standing at the shore of a vast ocean. Each wave that curls toward you is a question, and each receding tide is an answer we do not yet have. The ocean does not mind that you do not know every secret beneath its surface. It still lets you stand in its shallows, feeling the salt breeze on your face, your feet buried in the shifting sand. You do not need to understand every depth to feel your heart swell at the sight of so much beauty. In the same way, not knowing what lies beyond our final breath can soften our days with gratitude. We know the science of how our bodies return to the earth, how our cells dissolve into soil, how our atoms drift through forests and rivers, and the breath of the wind. We know that our kindness can ripple through the minds of those we love long after we are gone. But what happens to the spark of awareness, that quiet voice that says, "I am here"? No scan or microscope can yet hold it in a jar. And perhaps that is the gentle miracle of it. When we stop fighting for every answer, we make space for awe. Think of the little ways mystery blesses your life each day. The way your dreams flicker into strange stories while you sleep. The way your mind can feel someone's presence long after they are gone. The way a sunset can stop you in your tracks, your eyes brimming with tears for reasons you cannot name. Death does not take these small wonders from us. It reminds us to cherish them more fiercely while we can. Many people fear the unknown, but you can hold it like an unopened letter tucked in your pocket until the day you are ready to read it. You do not need to rush. Instead, you can choose to live with your eyes wide open. You can gather memories the way a child gathers seashells, turning them over in your hands, holding them up to the light. You can love people so deeply that your bond weaves through their thoughts long after your body is gone. You can laugh until your sides ache, cry when the world breaks your heart, and find your way back to wonder every time you feel lost. This is what it means to embrace the mystery. It does not mean giving up on questions. It means holding them lightly, letting them remind you that life is fragile and bright and worthy of every breath you take. You are not here to solve every puzzle. You are here to live the questions until they lead you gently to whatever comes next. So tonight, as you settle deeper into your blanket, feel the gentle truth that you do not have to know what waits beyond the last horizon. It is enough to know you are here now, your heart beating its quiet song, your mind weaving dreams that may one day drift into the same great sea where all mysteries live. Breathe softly. Let wonder be the lantern that lights your way through every dark place your thoughts wander. You are stardust and stories, and the soft hush of unanswered questions, and that is more than enough. Sleep well, dear dreamer, held by the mystery that holds us all. Take one last slow breath in and feel how the air moves through you, a gentle reminder that you are here now, safe, warm, and held by the soft hush of night. You have wandered far this evening, drifting through the winding corridors of science and mystery, through the questions that have danced across human minds for countless generations. You have looked at the final breath, the flicker of the mind's last light, the quiet surrender of cells, and the cosmic return of stardust to the stars. And through it all, you have carried your own wonder, that soft ember of curiosity that makes you human. So here you are, dear dreamer, at the edge of sleep. Maybe your eyes feel heavy now, your thoughts moving slowly like a tide pulling out to sea. Maybe part of you still holds a question or two close to your chest, letting it drift like a feather in the dark. And that is okay. That is more than okay. Tonight, the Snoozy Scientist wants you to remember that you do not need every answer tucked neatly under your pillow. Sometimes it is enough to rest in the hush of the unknown. Look at how far you have come tonight. You have seen how the mind tries to understand its own ending, how neurons spark like tiny stars even as they grow quiet. You have wandered through the stories of near-death experiences, the peaceful return of the body to the earth, and the mysteries of energy that never truly disappear. You have stood at the edge of quantum questions, peeking into the soft swirl of possibilities that science is still learning to name. And through it all, you have held on to the most tender truth. Wonder is not weakness. Wonder is what makes life precious. Not knowing is not the same as being lost. It means there is always more to see, more to ask, more to hold in your heart when the night feels too big. The unknown is not an empty space to fear. It is an ocean you can drift on, rocked gently by the waves of possibility. Let your mind rest now in that ocean. Imagine each thought as a little boat setting sail under the moonlight, carrying your curiosity out into waters so vast that they hold every question you have ever asked. If you could stand on that shore and look back at your own life, you would see how beautiful it is to wonder, how each goodbye reminds you to hold tighter to the people you love, how every breath is more precious because you know one day it will be your last, how even as you sleep, your mind stitches new dreams from threads of old memories, weaving you into the great story of what it means to be alive. So tonight, as you lie here with your eyes half closed and your breathing soft and steady, know that you are enough exactly as you are. The questions will wait, the answers will come in their own time, or perhaps never at all. And that is a secret you can carry like a small glowing stone in your pocket, a reminder that the not knowing is what makes the world so breathtakingly wide. Thank you for drifting through this with me tonight. It means so much that you are here, part of this small corner of quiet curiosity we call the Snoozy Scientist. You are not alone on this journey. Every time you tune in, every time you let your thoughts wander alongside mine, you become part of a gentle circle of dreamers all across the world, each of us wandering together under the same star-strewn sky. If tonight's gentle journey has brought you peace, I invite you to tap the like button so that more gentle dreamers can find us. Leave a comment and tell me what mysteries make you pause and look up at the stars. And if you want to drift through more nights like this, please subscribe and ring the little bell so you never miss our next quiet voyage into life's deepest questions. Your presence here helps this sleepy little corner of the internet grow, one calm heartbeat at a time. And now, sweet dreamer, rest. Let your mind loosen its grip on today. Let your breath carry you somewhere soft and safe. May you sleep peacefully, cradled by the vast ocean of wonder that holds every secret we do not yet know. Good night, gentle dreamer. Good night.